the two crazy guys on Contra Radio Network and KYAH 540 AM, Utah's Talk Authority. Chasing the rabbit so you don't have to. Here they are, Mark and Don, the two crazy guys.
Hey, alrighty, and welcome to another broadcast episode of the Two Crazy Guys. My name is Donald Lowry, aka Big D, and on the other side is my cohort and partner in crime, the other criminal, or I don't know if he's crazy or not. I guess we're kind of both crazy, but that's Mark Boyle, aka Prepper Guy. How you doing over there, Mark?
Hey, I'm doing really great today, and if you ask my wife, she has a different word for me besides crazy, and I think it's something to do with a body part and anatomy, but I'm kind of an a-hole, I guess.
Hey, you got to keep this PG. We're on public radio, and by the way, welcome to all of you up there listening to us on KYAH 540 AM in Utah. Welcome aboard, and welcome to all of you listening to us on the Contra Radio Network. Big shout out to John Jeffers over there and Prepping 2.0, and of course our two shows. And head on over there to contraradionetwork.com and check it out. So anyway, Mark, I don't know, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we were kind of just talking about what we were going to talk about, and I did watch that video that you posted. By what the standoff at Bunkerville and with the Bundys and all that, and I think that's a good subject because we kind of all forget that many years ago, just a massive violation of First Amendment and property rights and everything.
Yeah. So that you mentioned that, I do have that video. That video is up on redstateunderground.com, www.redstateunderground.com. Just go to that website, and if you don't see it scrolling through the top headers down there, just scroll down on the main page to the bottom of the page, and you'll see it under the featured video. That is the video that Mark and I are talking about today. It was produced by Center for Self-Governance. Okay. And man, I mean, we have to realize that this was an act of self-governance. This is an actual illustration of the citizenry controlling their elected officials.
Yeah. Having a hard time doing it, but they did control them, and it's a well-done documentary. I mean, they did a good job on it, because sometimes they're like a YouTube video. It's well done, and I got about halfway through, and then I was called into action. My wife had chores for me to do. I like how the rangers, or I guess they were park rangers, and BLM kept saying, well, we have your free speech zone, over there. You got a free speech area over there. You got a free speech area. If you want to exercise your right to free speech, go over there. It's like, that was just far be it from the government to tell you where you have your free speech rights, huh? Right, because I always thought that line that goes all the way around the continental United States, what we call a border, was our free speech zone, anywhere within the continental United States.
Well, it is according to the Constitution, but...
and maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because they're not always that bright, but they were thinking, well, if you want to have press and all that and have a place where you can go and conduct interviews and all that, but... these people were talking to the Rangers and to BLM, and that's free speech also. And there is no zone for that.
Right.
So,
so we got a train rolling by the studio today. So if you hear the train in the background, pay no attention. He's just rolling by the studio.
Yeah, I like the sound of trains. So
yeah, trains are cool, man. So a little off subject, and then I guess we can come back to the subject. But when I was a kid, my uncle used to run the Panama Railroad. In fact, in 1913, my great grandfather went to Panama during the construction of the Panama Canal, and he was a telegrapher on the Panama Railroad. So the trains go back deep in my roots and my family. And ever since I was a kid, I can remember running on the trains. You know, my Uncle Don used to run the train, and I can remember we'd be up there, you know, we'd be up in the engine and just little kids running all over the train, man. And so I've always had this fascination with trains ever since I was a kid.
Yeah, they're amazing. And, you know, we live about a mile from the tracks here, and everybody in town wants to silence the horn, you know, as they come through town, which is quite complicated thing to do for a city.
Well, it's required for a train crossing any kind of a street to sound that alarm. It's a law that he has to do that to advise that he's coming through.
Yeah, and so they have these new codes now to where the city has to have an island and so many feet back of curbs, and then the big crossing things and all that, and then they can get around that.
Yeah,
you know, because there's 75, 80, you know, trains go by a day.
Yeah.
But I like the sound of it. I'm far enough away to where it's just kind of distant, and it's kind of nice, you know, at night just to hear that going on, and it's just, I kind of like that, you know. I wish they had the bell. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So, you know, going back to the video, in fact, I took the Center for Self-Governance classes, and I can remember, you know, Mark would was pointing some of this stuff out because it was shortly after that happened. And, you know, just an amazing event that happened up there at the Bundy Ranch, where the citizens refused to allow the government to push in on them. And Mark, this is what I've been talking about. In fact, I think there's a snippet of video in there where Mark Herr is talking to Amon Bundy, you know, and he asks Amon, he says, well, what do you think the people can do to prevent this from happening again? And, you know, Amon says, get yourself educated. Now, Mark, you'll bear witness to this, but that's something I say all the time, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It really falls back onto having an educated electorate, which even the founders were talking about that. And they weren't talking about college degrees and student loans. They were talking about learning and reading and what are your rights, not the ones the government said they gave you, because that doesn't happen in a republic. It's the ones you have inherently. And even with, you know, the right to self-defense goes back to England days.
Yeah.
You know, hundreds of years before the Constitution was ever written, that you, like an animal, have the right to protect yourself.
Yes.
And so they're I hate using the word God-given, you know, rights, because then people start going, well, what if I don't believe there's a God? Well, they're just natural, inalienable rights.
That's right. Inalienable rights. Yep.
I guess it's as simple as if you fall down and hurt yourself, you got the right to go, oh, dang, that hurt.
Right.
It's natural. Maybe, you know, the founders were very religious and said God-given rights, but in today's atheistic and agnostic belief structure, you still have those rights, whether you believe in a God or not.
Until we allow the government to take them away from us.
Oh, yeah, and they work really hard at that, you know. But yeah, the Bundys, the Bunkerville standoff was definitely different in a lot of ways than what happened in Oregon, but it was the same thing: property rights and private property ownership. And a lot of people probably don't understand that, you know, the content me and you are creating right now is our property. We have a right. We have a right to that. If the internet, you know, if they decide to start censoring URLs and banning your right to speak and to get your content out there, then they're violating your right to, you know, your property rights.
Yep.
And if they take you down off a site now, yeah, they can kind of do that because they're a private company. But, you know, they can't seize it and just tell you can't have it.
Well, you know, this goes back to, I want to touch on when I looked at that Green New Deal, you know, one of the Bill of Rights that they have in there is that, you know, the right to internet access. So, all right, if we're going to have a right to internet, then how are they going to have the right to censor what it is that we see? Because now they're being very hypocritical, telling us, well, first of all, it's our right to have it, but oh, wait a minute, we're not going to let you have that because that's not what we approve of.
I think it would be like Bill Clinton with the definition of is, what does is mean? So you have the right to it, but this is, it is defined as what we say it is.
That's right.
And so they will sidestep the heck out of that all day, every day.
Yeah.
And yet, well, I have a right to own a gun. I don't see the government providing me a gun for free. But so you have the right. It's all available to you, no matter anywhere you live in America. You have the right to get a phone if it's offered to you. I mean, before there were telephones, you had to pay money to get that, run to your house and all that. You have the ability, and I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but everyone has the right to succeed in life. No one's going to hand it to you.
Right.
You're free to go out and, really break your neck trying to get all this nice stuff that we want in life, but a right doesn't mean it's provided.
And it's funny we're talking about this because I saw a story, I think it was this morning, I saw a story actually where it said over half of Americans don't even understand the Bill of Rights. They don't even understand their constitutional rights. And that, again, man, that's us, Mark. That's us and how we're allowing our education system to hijack what it is that we teach our kids. And rather than teaching them right from wrong, we're teaching them to buck authority anytime they want to buck authority.
Yeah, I guess it's entitled or whatever. And I believe in resisting much and obeying little when it comes from the federal government and all that. And I always liked the Generation X kids because they were very self-motivated and they wouldn't take stuff from authority, say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they would question, why can't I? But now this new generation whatever, mom's basement.
X.
Yeah, X responsibility, X, initiative, and X everything out of their lives. I like seeing a generation that's willing to resist authority when it's improper, but be able to listen and go, okay, officer, I understand what you're saying. I'll slow down or I won't do that again. But they just want to be offensive on all levels without any communications or thinking maybe I should do something different and quit being such an a-hole. That's my wife.
Well, so we're going to take just a minute here and take a break. And then we're going to come back after the break and we will probably continue to talk about the Bundy standoff because, Mark was saying just before we came on that, it happened so many years ago. We want to make sure that people don't forget. And we want to make sure that people understand they have a right to stand up to their government. So we're going to take a break and we'll be back right after this.
Hi, this is John Jeffers inviting you to listen to my show, The Jeffers Brief. On The Jeffers Brief, we discuss topics of interest and concerns for preppers and patriots. You can only find us on the Contra Radio Network on podbean.com or KYAH 540 AM, Utah's Talk Authority. Hope you join me and we'll talk to you then.
This is Contra Radio Network, internet radio for the discerning prepper and patriot.
Let's talk about tea. Not just any tea, getthetea.com. They have all kinds of cool stuff. They have cleansing teas, they have stuff for eye health, stuff from the sea, immune support, stamina and energy, food and protein, and just all kinds of cool stuff. Log on to the website at www.getthetea.com. Log on now. Second segment of program. Yeah, so we do want you to stop and visit our sponsors because it does mean a lot to us that you visit our sponsors. They help us keep this going, and of course, we'd like to thank you, the listeners, because without you, we don't have a show. So, where were we before the break? We were talking about the Bundy Ranch. And so, it's interesting. And like I said, that video is on my website at redstateunderground.com. And I encourage you to go and log on. I'm going to leave it up there for a little while because it's a really good video. And I encourage you, the listener, to go and check that out. There's a lot to learn there. And, Mark was there. Mark Herr, not Mark Boyle, was there. And, he witnessed the events as they unfolded, and it's his story. I mean, a lot of the video in there, he shot himself. So, it's an amazing account of what actually happened. And, it's funny, Mark, because it takes somebody like this to put something together like that, where people can see what really happened, because a lot of what really happened wasn't even reported in the media. And a lot of it was actually twisted by the media.
Yeah. And that's what they did in Oregon also. You could see the spin. But
the Bundys were made to look like criminals.
Yeah. And I guess that's the MO of the media and the feds. It's like, they deemed them as terrorists, not patriots. I think that was, what's his name in Las Vegas even, was it Harry Reid?
Uh-huh.
Here's a constituent of his, demanding, a redress of issues. And his senator is calling him a terrorist.
Yeah.
And so you can see a massive disconnect from the people, we the people, and those that we elect to protect our rights, which I guess they forget that that's like their key job, to protect our rights. And so, but Harry Reid was, kind of a crazy man anyway. But, and when you listen to what Bundy was saying, he was just saying this land belongs to not just him, but to the state of Nevada.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't belong to the federal government, and it never should.
No.
And these park rangers have no arrest authority, according to even the courts. And so he was just saying, stop doing this on my land. And he made it real clear. He goes, go read the Enabling Act and you'll see what I'm talking about. This land was in my family when the state was a territory.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you take a minute to just Google, Nevada or your state Enabling Act, it'll pull it up. And you can read the actual document and you'll see that the lines were drawn and they said this territory is now, a state. You own the land. And you manage the land to make enough money to run your state. And years later, the feds step in and go, well, we're going to steal 90% of it.
Right.
And then you'll be broke. All your income will be cut off. And then we won't even give you, skim off a little bit off the top so you can build roads and schools and all the things that a government should do. And so it's really a blatant violation or a breach of the Enabling Act. But, it takes a guy like Bundy to say, read the document. What am I doing wrong as a citizen?
Well, Mark, I don't even think if you watch the video, you'll see, and you can see where where Mark is really trying to stress the point that it came really, really close to an all-out shootout between the citizenry and the federal government. I mean, guys, we're talking about long guns, with scopes and snipers up on the hill. And I mean, the feds had snipers up on the freaking hills, ready to, they had their guns pointed at the citizenry. And there's even a point in the video there where, one of the guys has actually got and he's pointing back. And, I don't know. So I'm one of these guys that thinks pointing a gun is a very serious thing. If you're going to point a gun at somebody, here's the deal. I don't pull a gun on anyone. Okay. I don't point a gun at anyone unless I aim to use it to kill you.
Right. That's kind of the golden rule.
And these guys, man, you had the federal government agents, and they had their long guns pointed at citizens, United States American citizens, ready to fire upon them.
Right.
And let me tell you, Herr in the video makes it very clear that he at one point was very concerned for not only his safety, but the safety of all of those around, because when all it would have taken would be a car. I mean, they were right there by a highway, and all it would have taken was, a backfire or something.
Right.
And that could have opened up all out war. I mean, it was that tense. I don't think people that are listening to this program, I don't think they understand just how detrimental and just how close and how serious of a situation that whole Bundy standoff thing really was.
Yeah.
Because those guys, those ranchers, man, they were ready to die for their cause.
Right. And when you watch it as an American, with this comfortable, shield we have around us nowadays, I guess we always look at, these federal guys with their cool badges and their really nice vehicles that we paid for must be right. And who are these people down on the ground doing this? And you really have to look at it with open eyes and figure out what's really happening to make a decision and go, no, the guy on the hill with the sniper rifle is wrong. And that rancher on his horse protecting his home and his property and his livelihood, his life, liberty, and his happiness is right. And it's hard to see it. And when the news goes and puts their spin on it, just like we were talking last week about David Copperfield, and you see it from one angle, and that's how they present it. But the reality is sometimes the guy that looks like just a normal person is actually right. And the guy with the uniform and the badge and the protection of the U.S. government behind him is dead wrong. And so they really did paint it with a very biased brush, and
oh, absolutely.
And that it was amazing, that it didn't blow up like that into a powder keg of violence and stuff. But
oh, it very well could have, man. It was very, very, very close. It was closer than what I think most people even imagine.
Yeah. And, I talked about it in the Oregon thing, that if your sheriff is a moron and hiding under a desk, like what happened in Oregon, it could have went south really quick. Now, you were saying that the sheriff at Bunkerville was actually somebody that kind of got control of the situation and dialed it back.
No, that was at the Bundy Ranch.
Yeah.
At the Bundy standoff.
Yeah, that was in Bunkerville, Nevada, right?
Yeah, he actually came in and seized control of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And then he did his job.
Right.
Which is the job of the sheriff. He became the negotiator.
Yeah. And really he could have, really been even more forceful and just said, all you federal agents, if you don't leave my county, my deputies are going to arrest you all.
Oh, absolutely he could have, because the sheriff has the ultimate say-so in the land. He's the elected official there. And if he's doing his job constitutionally, he can tell the governor to go pound sand. I mean, that's just the way the law is. But yes, you're right.
But at least he stepped up and said, wait a minute, I'm going to negotiate this and calm it down. But I think if gunfire would have happened with a sheriff that is aware of his constitutional duty, would have sided with, the cowboys, basically.
I think so.
In this situation, and would have put the blame on the federal agents that had no right, no authority, no jurisdiction to be there whatsoever.
Right.
But so that's a good reason why you really need to pay attention locally and get a good sheriff and get good people in your county. And if you live in a city, you need to make sure your mayor's hiring a good sheriff, a good police chief. Yes,
absolutely. See, we're lucky here in Sierra Vista, Southeast Arizona. We have a very, very good police chief. I mean, we're very fortunate there. We also here in Cochise County, we have a very good sheriff. Sheriff Mark Daniels is an extremely good sheriff, and his predecessor as well, Larry Devers, was also an extraordinary sheriff. We have been fortunate there, and that's the kind of sheriffs that we need. I don't care. I mean, if you don't like Joe Arpaio, then whatever. But Joe Arpaio was doing his job as a sheriff.
He was honoring his oath and doing his duty. And if all the knee-jerk reactions from these weak-kneed liberals offended him, too bad, because you're hired to do a job, and sometimes everybody might not agree with that, but that's your job. You have to do it. So I do sometimes take a little issue with Mark Daniels, and you might have to talk to him someday because you know him, because he took his part-time job with the feds and Homeland Security. And there could be some good with that, having connections at a federal level, but
I think the reason he did that was so that he could bend some ears, if you will, to get some attention.
Right. But it's still fallen into the realm of politics, and I don't really want my sheriff to really know anybody outside my county. I want him to know his constituents. But I do understand that you have a federal government like Darth Vader in the dark side, always hovering over you, waiting to pounce. And so it's good to have a foot in the door. So I don't take that much issue with it, but sometimes it's like, dude, your bread is buttered here.
Yeah. I think he knows that. I think he's very well aware of that.
And I talked to, what's his name, Sheriff Mack, one time on the phone, and I was asking him about Mark Daniels, and he said, he's a good sheriff. He's not what he calls a constitutional sheriff yet, meaning he's working on him. And he said the same with Devers. Devers was on board, but they all walk that fine line between.
Yeah, they kind of have to.
The feds, because the feds have come in and stolen all our resources with their BLM, that it is a constant negotiation, and you just can't go in guns a-blazing and go, this is my county, get out of here. Because there are ramifications. Even if it's not violence, you lose a lot of funding. And it takes a while to recoup from that kind of stand, I guess.
Well, listen, we're going to have to take another break. So this marks the halfway point through the show. Come back on the other side of the break, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about what happened, maybe Bundy Ranch. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about what happened, elsewhere as well. So we'll be back right after this.
This is Contra Radio Network, internet radio for the discerning prepper and patriot.
Hi, this is John Jeffers, inviting you to listen to my show, The Jeffers Brief. You know, on The Jeffers Brief, we discuss topics of interest and concerns for preppers and patriots. You can only find us on the Contra Radio Network on podbean.com or KYAH 540 AM, Utah's Talk Authority. Hope you join me, and we'll talk to you then.
Talking the issues and taking the hit. Here they are, the two crazy guys.
Alrighty, and welcome back to the third segment of the two crazy guys. I am Donald Lowry, aka Big D, and on the other side is my cohort and partner in crime, Mark Boyle, aka Prepper Guy. And we've been talking a lot about the Bunby ranch thing, and don't even think for 1 minute that an episode like that couldn't happen again, especially with these clowns that are entering, and yes, I said clowns, that are entering into our electorate. I mean, we've got some real serious issues with the people that we're electing. We've got people that don't even understand the basic fundamental principles of a constitutional republic. And here they are elected. Ocasio-Cortez comes to mind.
They didn't just drop out of the sky and end up in Congress or the Senate. They were elected.
And that's the thing. She is supposed to be educated. Now, remember, last week we had that story break about the college scams. It just makes me wonder, is people paying for their educations? Because come on, man,
I think
you can't.
You locked up for a minute. Go back to makes me wonder.
It just makes me wonder how these people are getting their educations. We had that college scam thing, and it's just, I mean, I personally think that if you're going to run for and hold office in this great land, that you should at least understand the basic fundamental principles of a constitutional republic.
Yeah. Well, and I was kind of happy to see that her poll numbers are going south quicker than a duck in winter.
Yeah, because she won't shut up.
Yeah, she won't shut up, and people are starting to actually hear what she's saying, not just hear it like through the noise, but they're going, what she's talking about is just wrong. And so even in New York, her poll numbers are dropping really precipitously. So
look what she did with Amazon. Yeah, look what she did with Amazon.
Yeah, and as a city, you're going to cut breaks to a big corporation. It's not like the city of New York was writing Amazon a check. They were just saying, if you spend all this money here, which is good on so many levels for our city, that we will cut you some tax breaks over the next 5-10 years or whatever. And it adds up to this many millions of dollars. But they still lost money, massive amounts of money by not bringing that there.
And jobs too.
Yeah. So, hopefully they build their headquarters in Arizona, because anytime a billionaire wants to sprinkle money on my state, I'm all for it. And I'm not a believer in property taxes anyway. So if the city's willing to say, we're going to knock off 5 years of property taxes while you make us rich, I'm all for it.
Yeah, man.
Because everything the city of New York was waiving was technically unconstitutional anyway, like taxes and all this union deals and stuff like that. So who really cared other than a socialist?
Well, kind of going back, actually not going back to Bundy, although we could, but this kind of ties a little close into that. Remember Lavoy Finicum?
Yes. How can we forget that guy? He got murdered by his own government.
That guy was a patriot and a hero, man.
Yeah, he really was. And that was such a setup from.
Absolutely.
And I think it was more than just a setup for killing the guy. When you really look at how it all started with the Hammond family, that has to harken back to Uranium One, because he had old uranium mines on his ranch. Not the land he was leasing from the government as grazing rights, but the land he actually owned had abandoned uranium mines on there. And so, and then you had the governor who was, in bed with probably Hillary. You had the judge, Grassley, in the situation that was in cahoots with the governor. And then the sheriff and the sheriff's brother were good friends and had business connections with the judge.
Good old boy network.
Yeah. And I'm all for getting things done any way you can, but the good old boy network can work good. And in this case, it went south. And probably why Hillary's never been investigated, because it's just a ginormous cabal.
Yeah.
And it may never be proven, and it may sound like a conspiracy thing, but I downloaded, thousands of emails and text messages from the governor and the judge and some of the people at the marshal's department and stuff. You could tell they were all working in conjunction to shut this thing off, just make it go away now.
Yeah, quiet it down. I guarantee you that if they started the investigation on Hillary Clinton, you would be surprised. Now, we talk about going down the rabbit hole.
That would be a sinkhole.
God. Yeah. That would be like an ant farm. If you've ever understood or looked at how an ant farm is, they have a hole, and you see the hole, but then you go down into the ground, and then this thing just branches out for God only knows how many different places.
Yep.
And I guarantee you, man, you open up that crock with Hillary, and this is why they don't and won't, because so many of them are going to be taken down.
Right. Well, and you look
Mark, unbelievable corruption. I guarantee you, man. We ought to maybe that ought to be a rabbit hole we want to start chasing, buddy.
If you look at the Clintons, the Clinton machine or whatever they want to call it, the dynasty, it started way back in when he was the governor of Arkansas. And his dealings with the drug dealers and people disappearing. I mean, they have a hit list of people that have been killed and unanswered for, probably better than the Gotti family.
Waking up, not remembering stuff on trains and just all kinds of stuff, man. Unbelievable.
All the highway patrol that testified during Clinton's thing about how they would just show up at hotel rooms and tell the girl the governor wants to see you, and that is basically
Secret Service agents.
Yeah. So they do, if anyone has a closet full of skeletons, it's the Clintons. And that's all water under the bridge. But when it became personal with this Trump and Mueller investigation, then they need this was stuff that was within the scope of the investigation, that anything that leads from it, why aren't they looking at Hillary?
That's right. No, man.
Yeah, at all.
Yeah. Because the whole bunch of them are going to go down.
Yeah. And maybe that's why it'll never happen. It's you watch these movies and it's like, one of these really great movies and you're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden somebody sends a letter to the reporter and the whole government just collapses and everyone's arrested. It does not happen that way.
Well, look, man, I'm going to say this. I love President Trump, man.
Yeah.
I love my president. I really do. I respect him. I don't know if there can be much of a bigger fan than yours truly. I mean, I really do love I almost said Clinton, President Trump. God forbid me for that. Don't strike me dead. Okay. But I want to see him go after her.
Yeah, I do too. I want to, and I'm sure he's walking a tightrope with that issue.
I think he wants to go after her too.
Yeah, he'd like to lock her up, but then it starts. Well, the media will make it look like a banana republic, even though that's what they're doing. They're going after their enemies, and everybody's like, yeah. But the minute Trump goes after somebody that's really breaking the law, they're like, oh, just like a dictatorship where they want to eliminate the old people.
See, this is why they want to stop him so bad.
Yeah.
This, Mark, is why they want to stop Trump at all costs, because they are afraid that he is going to go after her. And if he goes after her, the whole kit and caboodle is going to go down in flames. That's the media. All of them are going to go down in flames.
Right.
And that, my friend, is why they are trying it every single thing they can to stop him.
Right.
Because they know that if he gets latched on, and I know he wants to go after. People, listen, folks, if anybody, you just heard me say how I want him to go after her.
Right.
If anybody wants to go after her, I can assure you it's Donald Trump.
Right. Well, and I guess that's the game they play, and the Dems are very good at the game, whatever the rules are. They are always seems like one step ahead. The minute they know Trump's going to go after them, they start this Mueller investigation, and all of a sudden, no matter what you do, you're kind of almost in a checkmate situation. It's more of a check, but still, it drags the argument in another direction. And if you go a different direction, you look like the bad guy.
As long as you're on the offense, you can't play defense.
Right, and they have it. I mean, and the Democrats do not eat their own. You know, look what happened with Judge Jeanine, you know, on Fox.
Oh man.
Said what probably everybody wanted to hear someone say. And yet Fox just rolls over, and Farrakhan has his own show on what network is it, MSNBC or something like that. He says just as inflammatory things, which I don't care. I can listen to it, or I can even research it and go, hey, he made a point there.
Well, look what they did to Don Imus.
Yeah, they shut everything down. And that's fine on their side. You know, they got their MSNBC and CNN and CBS, ABC, and NBC. But then when Fox just turns around and talk-tails and runs, it's like, you know, we only had about a 5% fighting chance, and that is slipping down to 2 or 3% because Fox has just become impotent, I guess.
Yeah. No, they have. And I mean, I owe a lot of that to the Disney merger thing. You know, I attribute a lot of that. You know, I Fox News, I just, man, I've lost my enthusiasm for them. And they're just One America News Network. I'm going to put the plug out there. That's where I get my news source from, folks. Even, you know, some of the popular websites out there that used to be reliable have started to, you know, wane away from being reliable networks. Right. So listen, Mark, we got to take our last break of the show today, and we will come back and we will wrap it up in a pretty little bow, as Mark likes to say. We'll be back, folks, right after this commercial message. Let's talk about tea. Not just any tea, getthetea.com. They have all kinds of cool stuff. They have cleansing teas, they have stuff for eye health, stuff from the sea, immune support, stamina and energy, food and protein, and just all kinds of cool stuff. Log on to the website at www.getthetea.com. Log on now.
Hi, this is John Jeffers, inviting you to listen to my show, The Jeffers Brief. You know, on The Jeffers Brief, we discuss topics of interest and concerns for preppers and patriots. You can only find us on the Contra Radio Network on podbean.com or KYAH 540 AM, Utah's Talk Authority. Hope you join me, and we'll talk to you then.
This is Contra Radio Network, internet radio for the discerning prepper and patriot.
The Two Crazy Guys on Contra Radio Network and KYAH 540 AM, Utah's Talk Authority.
Contra Radio Network Preparedness Radio, featuring John Jeffers, The Mark Boyle Show, The Conservative Underground, and much more. ContraRadioNetwork.com. Log on now.
Chasing the rabbit so you don't have to. Prepper Guy and Big D have joined forces to dig into the issues. Here they are, the Two Crazy Guys.
Alrighty, and welcome to the fourth and final segment of today's program here on KYAH 540 AM and Contra Radio Network. And I don't know, wherever you're listening to this, because it's going out there into the internet lands. We are synced in Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Google, all that good stuff. So God only knows where you're hearing this, or even on YouTube. So but welcome back to the final segment of the program. We've been talking a lot today about a lot of mismatched things, but mainly the whole moral of today's program is all about, government and the citizens standing up in defense of the government. And I mean, that's what, look, man, I mentioned this earlier in the program that I saw a story where like half of Americans don't even understand what the Bill of Rights are. They don't even know what the Bill of Rights are. The Bill of Rights, for those of you who listen to this show, probably know, because we talk about it a lot. But I'm going to first 9 amendments. It's the first 10 amendments, but I'm going to say the first 9 amendments to the Constitution are basically telling you things that the government cannot do to you, the people. And then the 10th Amendment, they were absolute genius, and they were smart enough. They brought it back to the states. Right. And basically what the 10th Amendment to the Constitution is, we have the first through 9, but if we forgot anything in those, the 10th Amendment basically covers anything we forgot to mention in the other 9.
Right. And that's, kind of like the nullification situation, where they shove some crap down our throat, and our politicians go along with it because they're mindless. You still can nullify that and go, no, this amendment or whatever you're doing, this law is unjust. It's diametrically opposed to the Constitution, therefore it's void. It doesn't exist. And we have that right too, to just, jury nullification, all these things that we aren't told, I guess, maybe not, don't get told. They just avoid it altogether.
And, that goes back to, all right, so that goes back to Obamacare, or Affordable Health Care Plan, or whatever you want to call it. It was an unconstitutional law, and it went to the Supremes, and the Supremes, reviewed it, and they said, well, in fact, I think it was Roberts that, was the one that was the decision maker, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yes.
And he said, we're going to uphold this. And see, I remember I was listening. I was so in tune, because I wanted to hear what they were going to say. And they upheld it as a tax,
right.
Even though, because the Constitution says that the government cannot force you to buy anything from the government.
Right.
And so they upheld, even though the Obama administration swore to be, up and down the walls, that it was not a penalty, it was not a tax. That's how the Supreme Court upheld Obamacare. And that's how we got it crammed down our throats, was because they upheld it as a tax,
Right.
which now brings a whole new meaning. Now it's not the government forcing you to buy something from the government. Now it's the government penalizing you in the form of a tax if you don't do this.
Right. And a lot of people were pissed at Roberts about it, but if you look at all the arguments originally, just like Social Security, FDR said it's insurance.
Roberts was right in what he said.
Because it was a tax. Once they went back and re-argued it as a tax, then why were they even in the Supreme Court?
Like you said, a lot of people got upset with Roberts about that, but he did the absolute right thing. Even though I'm not a fan of Obama, of, the Affordable Care Act. No. I'm not saying that by all means, but what I'm saying is that Supreme Court justice did exactly what he was appointed to the bench to do. Correct. He interpreted the law, and he made the right decision. He made the right call. And I can remember, I was like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? When I first, and I thought to myself, wow, why did he do this to us? And then it dawned on me that it's not that he did this to us. It's that he interpreted the law the way it was supposed to be interpreted. He did the right thing. He made the right call.
Right. Now, you could argue, and obviously the people that were against it, that argued against it, maybe didn't bring it out right, but, the government can tax us, but it has to be fair. And it has to be equally applied. And so with the penalty being as muddy as it is, you could argue that it's not really a fair tax, to be applied to everyone of the same income and standing. And so they could have argued it better, but I don't think those facts were on the table with the Supreme Court. And therefore they ruled on it the way it was presented.
Exactly.
And it's just one court case. I mean, the Supreme Court doesn't make law. It just passes opinions. And they said, in our opinion, the way you stated it today, it's right. It's constitutional. But it doesn't mean that you can't appeal it, or a state can't sit there and go, we're not going to follow it because we don't want to. And then it goes back into court again. States can ignore all federal law. So who knows?
Now, speaking of the Supremes, I've been seeing a lot of memes out since you were talking about, since we talked about, Judge Jeannie, and Fox letting her go. And I've been seeing a lot of memes about, Judge Jeannie, maybe she could be the next Supreme, to replace
Ruth Ginsburg.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But I don't think that would ever happen. I mean, I like Judge Jeannie, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it would ever happen because, first of all, you have to, as a Supreme Court, you have to be able to show non-bias opinions. And she has, don't get me wrong, I love her to death. God bless her soul. I love her to death, but she is very opinionated. And
her bias is run completely with mine.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
She doesn't have that King Solomon kind of attitude where she can look at it and go, yes, I feel this way, but this is constitutional.
Exactly.
And a lot of times things that, our politicians do that we love and respect are totally unconstitutional.
How long do you think Ruth's got?
I thought she was dead 5 years ago, but I guess not. I guess maybe they cryogenically froze her brain and she's just like a Muppet up there. But
well, see, here's the thing: it's a lifetime appointment, but there comes a point when you have to draw the line, man.
Well, and they're. I don't think it was ever constitutional that once they were there, it was just a golden parachute forever. They can be recalled or impeached or disbarred.
Yes,
and not because of bad actions, but just because it's like, if you're not going to step down, then we're going to replace you. You don't like it too damn bad. But we give them this lifetime pass, which I don't think the Supreme Court is any more powerful than any other branch of the government.
No.
And when you really study
it's not supposed to be anyway.
Right. And I was looking at some stuff, and I hate to bring up Alex Jones because everybody just flips out. It's like one of them hot button words.
I like Alex Jones.
Yeah, me too. And he's talking today, and I got a live feed, I think, on Prepper Guy there. You have to find it, but I have Alex Jones' 3 shows live feed. You can just watch them anytime you want. And he's talking about now this new censorship law will be on URLs.
Yeah.
And see, back when Oregon was happening, that was when the ICCAN or whatever, ICANN, which is a registration thing, and everybody, all the internet junkies out there are all such liberals. They're like, well, it's no big deal. Well, forget to click the email verification that you own that site every year.
Yeah.
And they just shut it off with the click of a button. And you have to go through this whole rigmarole. I had that done with one of our business websites, to where I was like, where'd my website go? I mean, it was just URL cannot be found. It was just like it had vanished.
Yep, they'll blacklist it. Yep.
Yeah. And so when I had to call the hosting company, and then they had to give me the link again and go through all this, it took like a day to get it reinstated. And all I had forgotten to do was verify with ICANN that I still own that site. Well, that's the power ICANN has. And so don't think for a minute that just because you rub somebody's feathers wrong, they can't shut you off. Because with censorship of URLs, you just won't have it. Your IP address or whatever it is that gives you that URL will just vanish into the void. And so you have to have your backups and all that. You need all your content on. Because
I go
they can't shut you off.
I go a step further. Not only do I keep some backups up to a certain extent on my computer, but I actually have external hard drives, and I back up everything I have onto external hard drives, just in case the computer crashes or something. Now, when I was doing, professional voicing and stuff, I would actually have external hard drives that I kept off site, right, in a secure, in a secure environment off my property, not even on my property. And I would take backups to those backups.
And when you really think about it, it's like, well, it doesn't really matter how much content you have on your hard drive. Where are you going to put it if they banned your URL? So you could re-upload it to Vimeo and create a new podcast and a new website, but then you're starting at ground zero again.
All over.
And it's hard enough to get the word out. Now,
well, I mean, look what they did to Alex Jones. You know, he off of YouTube. I mean, they completely censored him. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, but that is a very clear violation of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Right. And they try to muddy the waters with BS like the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. That means federal.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, hey, buddies. But, so they have no right to regulate the airwaves. They think they do. And once again, we've backed off the fight and said, well, it sounds good at first blush. Yeah, go ahead and regulate that. But the reality is, Alex Jones at least had enough, followers, like millions, that it didn't really affect him. But you take some small blogger out there, or like you or I, that are just trying to get out content, and you offend somebody over there at this international board, you're gone.
We got about 25 seconds left. And there was one more name I wanted to bring up that they used to like to censor and listen to a lot, was Art Bell.
Great guy. I don't know
if you all know who Art Bell is, but Art Bell was the king of late night talks. Hey, listen, we are out of time, Mark. We got about 10 seconds, and we're going to have to wrap it up. So we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, my name is Donald Lowry, and
I am Mark Boyle, the Prepper Guy. Thank you all for being here and listening and watching.
Thanks for tuning in. Catch them next time as they dig into the issues. The Two Crazy Guys. Log on to the website at www.contraradionetwork.com.